Hi everyone. This is such a great turnout. Thank you all so much for coming. How many of you have been to a Creative Standard event before? Okay, good. Lots of new faces. Well, thank you all for coming. My name is Jordan Gentry, and I'm the program director at Big Medium. And if you've been to Creative Standard events before, you know that this is the professional development wing of Big Medium for artists and creatives. And over the past year or so, we have been tackling topics that are brought to us by you, our community. And for the most part, those topics have been very straightforward how-to guides, like how to write a grant, how to market yourself as an artist, etc. But tonight, we're really excited to explore a more personal topic that may have very different applications for each of you. So, and that's overcoming scarcity mindset. And we're really lucky to have Christine Garvey here to break that down for us. And Christine is both an artist and an educator who has exhibited internationally and taught at institutions like UT, Concordia University Montreal, Florence University of the Arts, and Pioneer Works Center for Art and Innovation. So please give her a round of applause. I'm gonna move this. It's gonna be in front. Flexibility. Can everybody hear me? What's the hearing in the back? Yeah? Up. Up? More? Better? Okay. Thank you, Jordan. Thank you guys so much for being here tonight. I'm super pumped to talk to you guys about a topic that is close to my heart, scarcity. But like Jordan said, my name is Christine Garvey. I am an artist and an educator based here in Austin. I've been teaching for a really long time, most recently at the college level, but over the last 10 years I've been teaching workshops across the US that deal with ideas that I think are really important for creative people to be talking about with one another. These are ideas that I feel were not being addressed really in our school, or things that I didn't experience being addressed in my MFA program, or I'm not seeing necessarily in creative learning environments wherever I go. So when I create a class, it's coming from an oral lecture or workshop series. It's coming from a really personal place. It's coming from a place of something that I'm struggling with in my own practice. So when I present to you tonight, I am not presenting to you as a creativity guru. I am like you guys, this stuff is hard for me too. And what I will do is research that idea, whether that idea is about recovering your creativity during, the emotional turmoil around that, whether it's how we can value what we make, whether it's how to sustain ourselves financially as artists, or in this case, to think about scarcity and how that's affecting artistic communities across the US. I'll research that idea, I'll create some tools that I myself will use in my practice, and then I will try to share it in a community-oriented format. I see things like this as magnets for like-minded souls. So I've set up tonight to be really interactive, for you guys to be able to talk to each other, to talk to me, and for us as a community to really decide the type of ideas that we want to be thinking about as artists and bringing into the public. So thank you for being here, and thank you for being a part of that tonight. The way that this is going to be set up is, unfortunately, it's not going to be very passive. So I'm sorry if you were ready for that. This is going to be an interactive workshop, which means we're going to do a few different things. One is that you are going to be writing. Does everybody have a notebook and a pencil? If you got to use your phone, that's fine too, whatever works. We are also going to be doing some live polling. So that is why the Wi-Fi password is up there. If you're getting shitty Wi-Fi, just maybe, or phone service, maybe log into that now. And then we are going to be doing stuff with a buddy, because there's so many of you, it's hard to do groups. So what I would say is look to somebody next to you, maybe a new person, and let's just take a minute and introduce yourself. So this is going to be somebody that you're going to be talking to over the next hour at at various points. But first, I wanted to start our conversation tonight around scarcity with a definition. So when I say to you scarcity, when you saw that summary of tonight's workshop, what are some things that came to mind? When you hear that word scarcity, what do you think of? Just shout.
Money and resources.
Money, resources, panic,
Fear.
limitations, fear,
Self-imposed limitations.
self-imposed limitations, space, scheduling, restrictions. You guys don't need any prodding. I love this. Time in the back. Taxes. Oh my God. Okay, so we got a lot of feelings on this subject, but how do we define what this phenomenon is? So scarcity is having less than you feel you need. Okay? So when we say scarcity mindset, maybe you're hearing that word out there, scarcity mindset, like what does that actually mean? Scarcity mindset is the belief that there will never be enough, that what you want is in limited supply. This is a really wild thing. So if you think about it, this is an example of a scarcity issue. Y'all get it? So maybe this is a scarcity problem of confidence or know-how, skill, whatever that is. But we creatives, this is something that we experience a lot in our lives. Like think about how quickly all of those feelings just came up. And there's some really, really interesting research around the psychology of scarcity. So what is actually happening when we feel that there is not enough of something, that there is a limited supply, and we're operating from a position of lack? And so there's a great book that was published in 2014 by two professors, Sendil Mumunathan, who is a professor of economics at Harvard University, and Elder Shafir, who's a professor of psychology at Princeton. And in their book, which is The New Science of Scarcity, The New Science of Having Less, and How It Defines Our Lives, what they looked at was communities that were experiencing very, very intense scarcity around money, so incredibly impoverished communities. And they looked at how the participants in their study would try to solve the problem of paying the rent on the first when they were having the scarcity issue. And what they found was that those participants would do something called tunneling, which means that they were able to focus really, really intently and be really, really effective in a short-term basis to make sure that that rent was paid on the first. But there were long-term consequences that they were unable to anticipate because they were doing this kind of blinders-on tunneling. So they might have taken out payday loans, or they might have used credit cards, and so that made that scarcity issue worse and worse and worse. And so this concept is called the focus dividend. It's the idea that when you focus really intently on something, there are some pros that make you feel like you're being effective. So some of those pros are that increased kind of laser focus. You know when you're in the zone and it's like nothing can get at you. You're just like bam, bam, bam. You're in it. You're in the tunnel. We creatives, we love to tunnel. This is like is anyone, like raise your hand if you love that in the zone feeling, right? We know what that's like. So that is a super pro because you feel effective, you feel efficient. You actually make fewer mistakes too in a short-term way when you're in the tunnel. But there are consequences to scarcity mindset too. There are cons. And one of those cons is that we can't see out of the tunnel when we're in scarcity mindset mode, which means that we have blinders on. We're unable to see those things that are happening around us, which is when, if you ever have that experience of working on a project and you're in the zone and then all of a sudden you forgot that you had 4 meetings that you were supposed to be at. I will tell you that literally happened to me this week when I was making this presentation. Because I forgot about everything, I was in the zone. So the tunnel has consequences. The other thing that happens is we have a loss of bandwidth. What is bandwidth? Bandwidth is actually 2 things that are happening in your brain. It's your cognitive capacity, your fluid intelligence, And it's your executive control, so your ability to use self-control, not make impulsive decisions. Well, when you're in a scarcity mindset, that is incredibly diminished. That's a big problem. Like, we need to be fluidly intelligent. We need to exercise self-control. Okay, so loss of bandwidth. The last one is trade-off thinking when you're in scarcity mindset. And trade-off thinking can be best explained with the metaphor of the suitcase. So the author, Elaine Lafon, explains, imagine if you're going away for the weekend and you have to pack, right? Somebody who is in scarcity mindset is operating with that smaller suitcase. So they get really good at figuring out what's going to go in that suitcase, right? They pack really efficiently for what they think they need. But what ends up happening is they do and or thinking. Not everything can fit in that suitcase. Versus if you're functioning in an abundance mindset, you have a bigger suitcase. There is more slack. There is more flexibility. There are room for different possibilities, right? And you have it so that you can be prepared for a rainy day if you want to pack, that extra bikini or whatever you want to do. So it's an interesting way to think about, the and or versus the this and. Think of the big suitcase as the this and thinking. Okay. So we got the tunnel, we got the loss of bandwidth, and in the tunnel comes the blinders, and then we got trade-off thinking. Well, what if you say, the tunnel really works for me? I am somebody who I have a lot of projects. I am somebody who's juggling a lot of the time. I need to be in the tunnel because the tunnel is how I get stuff done. I go from thing to thing. Well, if you spend so much of your time in that obsessive way of thinking in that tunnel, you end up in crisis mode in every other area of your life. You end up reacting to things versus working in a proactive way. Does that make sense? Okay. So why is scarcity mindset something that creative people are really susceptible to? This is something that happens to so many of us. Number one, we feel scarce in a lot of different areas of our lives. Think about all of the things that you guys shouted out. I love that. There's a lot of different things. We feel like we can never have enough. Time, money, Instagram followers, opportunities, confidence, whatever, security, peace of mind. Does anybody have peace of mind? Because if you do, you are welcome to come up here and lead this thing. I don't have it. So we're exhausted. I mean, do you blame us? We're exhausted. We're trying to do a lot of different things. And what I want to do is I want to get a feel. You guys are already very generous in your sharing. But I want to get a feel from you. Like, what is the thing that you initially, what's the fast thing that comes up when I say you will never have enough of something? What's the thing you feel like you will never have enough of? So I want you to go to, it's called Slido.com. It's like live polling, it's anonymous. And then you're going to enter the event code Scarcity Mindset. And then it should come up. Let's see, this is an experiment. So it's already polling. We got 15 people who've already submitted something. Time, that's a big one. Get specific. If there's something really specific that you think of, what you feel like you will never have enough of. Good ideas, yes. Discipline, stability, approval, energy.
I'm still waiting for it to load.
Time with my child, totally. Love, rest, approval, oh man, focus, yes. Look at that, money too, that's a big one. Respect and recognition, original work. Skill, okay, this is awesome. I think it's really good, and this is good for you guys to get a sense of where each of you are at, right? We're taking the pulse of the room a little bit. So maybe we'll come back to this list at the end and see what's kind of developed.
How do you get this to work? I couldn't enter anything or get it to connect at all.
You may have to, maybe your neighbor can help you troubleshoot. Slide it up. Okay, so it's obvious that there is a lot of stuff on our mind. We feel like we're failing on a lot of different fronts. So maybe, externally we feel like this. We're trying to like keep it together. But really on the inside we feel more like this. This is, God bless David Shirley. He gets it. So we've all been there. Whoever told us that we need to live our passions, that we should follow our dreams and have it all, who said it was possible to fully self-actualize in your life? Basically everybody all the time. When we don't achieve that, we feel like we're failing. We feel scarcity. There's this notion out there that if you follow a path, if you work hard, you should get what you want. Corollary, if you're not getting what you want, it's because you're not working hard enough. Scarcity ipso facto. This is a great writer and illustrator. She's also a professor at Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Art, and she has a lot of work on art and scarcity. And her name is Jessica Abel. I highly recommend checking her out. Okay, so we feel that idea of like never working hard enough is also connected to scarcity, right? That sense of lack. We'll never get there. It's our own fault. The second thing of why creatives are really susceptible to scarcity mindset is we love the tunnel. So that feeling of laser focus, of being in the zone, in flow, is a comfortable state for us. It's a way that we get things done. And it's oftentimes how we were trained. So for those of you who went to art school, think about how much it was preached that you need to be in the studio and put in your 1,000 hours and make those 200 paintings or whatever it is. Turns out that this way of working is actually really unhealthy in terms of what it's doing to your brain, right? Because it's carving those neural pathways of thinking in this really myopic way that affects your bandwidth, makes you do either or thinking, and it makes it so that you're unable to be aware of the abundance that might be surrounding you, of other possible solutions, because you're tunneling. So we have to, right, this is a nice metaphor for the tunnel. We have to find a way to make the tunnel work for us. So I'm not saying get rid of it completely, but we need to set up an intentional relationship to the tunnel so that it can be effective versus crippling, and we feel like we're kind of stuck. The third one is we're always juggling. How many people here feel like they are juggling too many things at a time? Yeah, it is a huge issue, juggling. And it is something that, I like this image of the juggle. Well, not quite a juggle, but it's a problem because when we're juggling is basically where you have scarcity in a lot of different buckets. So you tunnel, you go from thing to thing to thing to thing, and you're always catching up. And that is the thing that kind of sets you behind and makes you feel like you're drowning. Is that feeling of juggle. So this is an excerpt from the Scarcity, the New Science of Having Less. Scarcity is compounded by behaviors that magnify it. There are two key features to a scarcity trap. One is being a step behind, and the other is juggling. Juggling is the constant move from one pressing task to the next. So when you are juggling, you are always being reactive, right? You don't have that kind of proactive control. And it can feel really, really overwhelming. So let's take a moment and kind of digest some of those ideas. And I want you to connect back with that partner that you talked to in the beginning and kind of maybe talk about when we polled for that scarcity question, like what came up for you? What was the thing that you thought about of what you feel like you're never going to have enough of? So take 5 minutes, talk to your partner, what came up? Okay. Going to continue to do some work together. But let's talk about how the hell we get out of this scarcity trap. So obviously this is a thing. It's personal. There are a lot of feels around it. How do we deal with this thing? Well, the first thing we have to do is we got to deal with the effing tunnel, okay? We got to make it something that works for us and not something that owns us. So that obsessive thinking. Here are some of the ways that I think about this. The first one is that we have to set an intentional kind of time for the task that you need to get done. If that task that you need to get done is do your social media posts, make it a concrete amount of time so that you can get yourself out. If it is you have to write a grant, make it a set amount of time that you can get out. Set an alarm. If you leave tonight and you're like, I have no idea what that woman was talking about, she seemed nuts, but I do remember she said alarms, then to me that is a win. That is like the biggest takeaway I would like you to have. Alarms let you be present, they let you feel safe in the work that you need to get done, protected and productive, but they get you out of the tunnel and they give you perspective on that work. So that's a big one. Get an outside perspective. That outside perspective might be from a collaborator. It might be from somebody who has a different specialty than you do that might give you a good framework. Outside perspective helps you give context to the work that you're doing, and it helps you understand, avoid myopic thinking. See possible opportunities that might be around the thing you're tunneling on that you might not be able to see. Right? That is kind of like abundance mindset, is seeing these other opportunities that you might, in your tunnel, be blinded to. So an outside perspective really helps. The other one, get in your bod. This is serious business, people. Because when you're up and you're in your control tower all the time, and you forget that you didn't eat lunch today, well, you're going to do some really shitty thinking. So this is a good example is, when you're working really hard and then you like force yourself to take a shower and you're washing your hair and then you have like a really good idea. That is because your bandwidth is restoring itself. Your fluid intelligence is coming back and your self-control is coming back. And that is where the good ideas, right? You get out of that tunnel, good ideas start to happen. So go for a walk, go take a shower, eat a sandwich, go dance, watch comedy, that gets you in your body too, because this is a holistic system of intelligence, and we seem to forget that because we get really busy with all of our juggling. So take care of your bod. All of these things are about helping yourself step away from what you're doing. If you have a dog, go walk the dog. That's another example, right? Do something that gets you out of that obsessive framework of production. Step away from what you're doing in a productive way is the idea. The second one is examine the systems that you engage with that reinforce scarcity. And I have a big one that is a real bummer, and it's social media. So you can disagree with me, but I will say social media is an effective tool, and I am somebody who uses social media if we understand it for what it is, which is an instrument for advertising. It is about advertising. So if you are promoting an event like tonight, or a new body of work, or what else? Something else that's important to you, an exhibition, it's a great tool for that. The problem is that we have turned it into this one-stop shop for our creative lives. It is where we go for inspiration, to do research, to connect with other people, to find out about opportunities, and we spend way too much damn time on this thing, and then we feel like crap. Because at the end of the day, we feel like, this poor guy, that's the reality of how social media works for most of us, right? It wants you, it's a machine that wants you to feel scarce because that is how it makes its money. It wants you to feel like you don't have enough vacation time because that's how it sells you vacations. It wants you to feel like you don't have enough awesome footwear because that's how it sells you shoes, right? So same thing within the arts. We have to keep that in mind. The other thing that it's really bad about is it's hard to find values-driven examples. Now, you could say, Well, I was able to go on Instagram and find artists that are more like me and find my tribe that way. But the problem is that the distribution channel of Instagram is putting everything in the same place. So you are comparing yourself to your cousin who has 3 kids, Cardi B, a famous artist in New York, your friends from grad school, and whoever, right? And what happens is that all of these things distract you from your values-driven priorities. And we need better examples. So it's not a system that's set up for you to be intentional and thoughtful about your work. It's built on scarcity. Okay. The last thing I will say about that is to examine systems of scarcity that you engage with. Think about your workplace. Think about other environments that you spend time in. Is there a feeling of there will never be enough status, respect, certainty, and do you feel like you can never work hard enough or with enough energy that you're going to be able to feel those things? Think about that, because that stuff affects you on a daily basis, and maybe you need to be in a different kind of environment that makes you feel valued. So it's something to think about. Minimize the juggle. This could be its own. It could be its own workshop. It really could. We could spend 2 hours talking about how to do this. This is something that I super struggle with too, so I don't have an easy answer for you on this one. But the big thing is that you have to know what's important to you, know where you want to spend your time, and that's the same thing for your work. Like, what opportunities feel good for your work? What communities feel like they are nourishing and supporting your work? And spend time in those places versus trying to do all of these different things that you might not necessarily value, right? So the endless to-do list, Austin Kleon, a local creative celebrity, is good for this. So know what's important to you, set values-driven priorities. Because if you're juggling, you will never be able to be enough in all of the different arenas that you are trying to give yourself to. So either way, you have to set those priorities. There's a lot of different tools out there to look at that in a holistic way. So if this is something that it's a hard one for you, come and talk to me and I can give you some recommendations on where to start with some resources. The big one, this is a homework assignment for y'all. You thought you weren't going to get any homework, but you did. Is that I want you, this is kind of like a starter kit for figuring out what's important to you, just to get your feet wet. Make a list of all of the things that you're juggling. When you are juggling things, you are holding equal space for all of that stuff at the same time. You cannot hold equal space for all of those things, right? Some things have to rise to the top. For example, if you're a parent, that's a priority, or you're taking care of, someone else in your family, that's going to have to be a bigger kind of priority. But pick your top 4 priorities and then cut the rest away. So when you're going and you're making those decisions of like what you want to prioritize when you're juggling, you have at least a map that you can go back to and say, does this fit in with these 4 priorities that I talked about right now? Yes or no? And you'll have a sense of how you might want to move forward. We can talk more about this. Okay, so those were 3 ways that we tried to deal with. We're going to try to deal with the scarcity trap. So one of them is set up an intentional relationship to your tunnel. Figure out how you're going to get out so you can make it work for you. The second one was examine your relationship to systems of scarcity thinking. Namely, I talked about social media. And the third one was juggling. So setting your priorities, minimizing the juggle. And now we have to think about how we might move from that place of lack to a place of abundance. And this is where we're going to get real self-helpy. And we're going to be peppered in there. Okay. The first thing that I will say is get grateful. Now, if you're sitting there and you're giving me like an internal eye roll, and it's like, this girl just thinks I gotta get grateful, and that's gonna solve all of my juggling problems. That is, I'm sort of saying that, and I'm sort of not saying that at the same time. There's a very practical component to gratitude that is actually really useful, and it is, there's Keanu. Yeah, I love him. Gratitude is the thoughtful practice of recognizing how you are resourced. Yeah? Yeah. So it's great. So for example, it's a productive exercise. So for example, I'm super grateful to Big Medium for hosting these events, because I get to, talk to and meet all of you guys and see you as a resource. You get to meet each other, and we get to think about these ideas together. I'm excited about these venues, these places to talk. This is giving me ideas of how I'm experiencing already a type of abundance where I am resourced. Okay? So we're going to do a little exercise around that. This is my other piece of advice when it comes to gratitude and abundance. What you focus on, you make more of. If you guys haven't read You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero, it's a delightful beach read. I recommend it, and there's some really great ideas in there. But she says this, what you focus on, you make more of. And if you think about this as it relates to scarcity, if you continue to focus on where you think you are not showing up, what you think you're failing at, what you think you don't have enough of, you will continue to feel that way. You will continue to see those things. Versus if you recognize where you are already resourced, where you are already kicking ass, and I'm confident you guys are all kicking ass, then you're going to see that stuff out in the world, and it's going to come to you more and more. It's going to become more clear. That suitcase is going to feel bigger, right? Because you're focusing on the abundance. So let's do a little audit, and just take a couple of minutes, and I want you to make a list of, I see some chuckles back there, that's okay. Make a list of 5 things that you guys feel grateful for, where you feel resourced. And if you need paper.
Yeah.
And then for everything on your list, translate that into a resource. So for example, if you say, I'm grateful for, my partner, and it's like the resource is a place to bounce ideas off of. If you say, I'm grateful for the opportunity for this exhibition, you're grateful for the opportunity to share ideas with the community. Right? Think about what it is. Take that thing you're grateful for, turn it into a resource that you have. Okay. We'll come back to those lists with your partner in a little bit. So moving into abundance mindset. So we have the first thing that we talked about. Now we're talking about releasing the grip. That is how I think of generosity. When I'm saying be generous with intention, this is a really great way. There's a lot of opportunities that come with generosity that are really useful for switching how we think about what is available to us. So that being said, you can be giving. Say you're naturally somebody who is very generous, and you are very comfortable sharing things with people in your life, sharing ideas, sharing your work, opportunities. You can be giving from a place of lack. Right? You can be giving with a sense of desperation, with a sense of there never being enough of what you have to offer. And that is where it's coming from. Versus if you are giving from a place of abundance to people that you think could really use what you have to give, right? That it's coming from a place of intention. And that is going to help you do a couple things. First thing is going to help you release the grip. So scarcity, as we to go back to what scarcity mindset is doing, is there's that loss of bandwidth, there's that either or thinking. The either or thinking is the grip. When you're really stressed about something, or you're going down that Instagram tunnel and you're just holding on for dear life. Well, that is the grip of scarcity mindset. And if you give, if you're giving with intention, it's you're taking some baby steps in releasing from the grip. It does also, with generosity, help you do something conceptually, which is recognize that opportunities are renewable resources. This is a really hard thing, I think, for us to conceptualize some of the time, especially if we're in a smaller community and maybe there's a limit in certain opportunities that we see out there. But we have to recognize that these are renewable resources. And one of the ways that we do that, I'll give you an example of something that happened to me recently. I had an opportunity that came my way this summer, and it was coming at a time where it really wasn't in alignment with what I was trying to prioritize. And I remember thinking like, oh, this is like a great thing, like, should I do it? Like, I'm worried if I don't do it, nothing else is gonna come through, and I kind of did that grip. But then I stepped back and I was, I said, this is actually not what I want to be spending my time doing. So what you focus on, you make more of. But this actually seems like a great fit for this person with where they're at. And so I was able to kind of pivot and pass that thing along to somebody else. And it was a win-win. It helped somebody in my community that was grateful to do their work. And it was a win for me because it gave me more room to focus on what I wanted to do. So working within that generosity from a place of abundance, that you're serving yourself and you're serving others when you're thinking about it like that. Okay? So it helps you think about opportunities as renewable resources, and it helps you prioritize your values. So what you want to be spending your time doing, right? Is that opportunity actually what you want to be doing, or is it a better fit for somebody else to think about? I like this image because in this rendition of the Felix Gonzalez Torres, the candy is an endless supply. So what a beautiful way of thinking of abundance. It's refilled every time something is taken away. Okay. Number 3, this is a really tricky one, is practice luxury. So when I say luxury, what do you guys think of? Diamonds, vacation, spa, what else? Along what? Amen, girl. Okay. So when I say luxury, I do not mean you gotta go buy designer goods and that's how you're gonna feel better about things. That's not what I'm saying. Luxury is it's the small things that you are not letting yourself have, right? Because you're in that scarcity mode. I asked this question to a group of people recently, and one of my students said that luxury was buying the expensive butter at the grocery store. Which was like perfect. It was like $4 butter. She loved it. But she felt like this puppy, when she was using that butter. So it's really, really personal. It's what makes sense for you. Luxury for me is taking an Uber instead of driving. Like, oh my God, it's amazing. Or eating like a really good salami sandwich. Or, taking a nap in the middle of the day. These are all things that, because we're in that juggle mindset where we're so exhausted and drained, that we don't think that these are important things. Well, they are. Because luxury is about recognizing your values and giving yourself permission to experience abundance for yourself. So when you are expressing that to yourself through self-care effectively, right, you feel more deserving and more open and more eyes wide to opportunities that could be coming your way. This is a mindset question. Okay? So we're going to talk about luxury. And I want you to go to that list again. And I want you to list 5 things that feel luxurious to you. And I will give you a little cheat sheet. This is my luxury map. And on that map is blowing bubbles with my niece Cecilia, eating, as I said, salami sandwich, drinking coffee, drawing. I love a good Aperol spritz, so y'all know where to find me after this. And I love, organizing my drawing supplies. That feels like a really luxurious thing to do. So take a couple minutes. What is luxurious to you? What is something that would feel really abundant in terms of your life and giving it to yourself? And then when you've done that, you're going to check back in with your partner and talk about the things that kind of came up. So take a couple of minutes. Think about, when is the last time you did one of these things? When is the last time you were the puppy in the bathtub? Okay. Let's put that together. Okay. kind of checked in on this one, but that gratitude list and figuring out some of the resources that you have. Is there anything that came up? Does anyone have a resource that they want to share? Talent. Hell yeah. What else? Community. Yes. Nature. Health. Oh my God, yeah. What else? Capacity to experience. Cool. A physical space to work. That's good. Yeah. Yeah, double space. People who believe in you. Totally. Awesome. Great. What about luxury? Tattoos? That's true. They're very expensive. But they look great.
They look fantastic.
Yeah. Okay. Tattoos. Totally. What's that? Peonies. Flowers. Gallery visits. Yep. Silence. Oh my God, yes. A good slice of pizza. Exercise.
Buying a gift for somebody.
Buying a gift for somebody? That's nice. Cooking yourself a nice breakfast. What's that? Good lighting. Oh my God. Yeah. Okay. These are big luxuries. So why is this important? I mean, the big thing is that if we are exercising abundance with ourselves, you're going to see it back in the world. Right? Do you ever notice that when you go and you spend a little bit of money on yourself, you get your nails done or whatever, that you feel like you are worth more money, you feel more valuable, right? There is a correlation between the exercise of abundance with ourselves and our ability to believe we deserve it out in the world. It comes from you. So think about, you're already amazingly resourced, you already are recognizing all of these luxurious things. Let yourself have them, let yourself utilize them. So again, there's my abundance. Playing with, if you have kids or doing something fun and playful is a great way to feel luxurious too. Which leads me into my next one, play. This is something that I talk about really with creative people. Play is a really important thing for us when it comes to abundance, because play is the expression of abundance in the studio. It's about non-productive, so there she is. She's way bigger than this now, y'all, but I like this photo. Play it's a really specific thing. It's the thoughtful practice of experimentation. It is about making something without a concern for the end result. So, oftentimes in our creative practices, because our bandwidth is low, because we are juggling, because we're trying to promote ourselves on social media, we have made things so that they are rarely for us anymore. We are creating with a product in mind, and then we're sharing that product immediately goes online, right? Or you're short on time, so you're thinking with that small suitcase mindset and saying, my work needs to be this way. I make work that looks like this. I pursue opportunities that look like this, right? It's that and or thinking. Well, when it comes to in the studio, we have to work with that big suitcase. We have to move into that big suitcase way of thinking and say, these new ideas belong here. These new materials belong here, right? These new types of expressions and skills belong here. That is what abundance mindset means when you are an artist, is letting yourself play without an output or product in mind so that you can you can grow. So play is how creatives put abundance into practice. Another homework assignment for you is think about how you like to play. What does play look like in your creative practice? So maybe even take a second, if you have a little time, take a second and make some notes on that. What does play look like in your creative practice? How do you express abundance in your studio? So we covered a lot of stuff today. Hopefully this was, an hour and a half workshop. It's kind of a starter kit for a lot of these ideas. But how do you move forward? What's the summary of what do we do with all of this information? Well, to review, to get out of that scarcity trap, what do we need to do? First, we have to recognize when we're in the tunnel, recognize and create intentional relationship to the tunnel. So, time yourself, create an alarm, get an outside perspective, set aside intentional time, get in your body, eat lunch, go for a walk, make sure that because remember, getting in your body is about maximizing your bandwidth, restoring the bandwidth, that elastic thinking, self-control. The second one is look at the systems that you engage with that reinforce scarcity thinking. How are you using social media? Is that reinforcing a scarcity mindset for you? How are you engaging with the community? Is your work environment a place of scarcity, a lot of scarcity thinking? Is that affecting how you see your value and what's possible? So recognize those systems of scarcity that are in your life that you're engaging with and limit your engagement with them or change your engagement with them. And then limit your juggling. So prioritize, go through that list of things that you feel, that juggle list, and everything that you're holding space for. When you juggle, you hold equal space for all of these things. You go from tunnel to tunnel to tunnel to tunnel, right? You're always kind of catching up in one area. So we basically have to minimize that to minimize the effects of scarcity thinking. So look at what that list is, go and do that homework assignment around priorities. So think about the juggle or everything that's kind of you're holding space for, and then make that priorities list of say, these are the top 4 things that are important to me. And if you have questions on the juggling, come talk to me and I'll give you some more resources on that. So prioritize. And then how do we move? We deal with the trap. Now how do we move into a different framework of thinking, a different mindset to work from abundance versus lack? Well, the first one is, right, get grateful. That gratitude is a very practical expression of resource. It's about recognizing where you are resourced, what you are already kicking ass in, all of the things that are available to you, and it's a great first step in figuring out, moving into an abundance mindset. Give something away, release the grip, release that small suitcase, stuffing of all the stuff in there, stress grip, and give that thing away. Give with intention. Do it so that you're helping somebody in the community with, a sense of thoughtfulness, and you're giving yourself room to prioritize what's important to you and what your values are and how you want to use your time. So think about giving as both for somebody else and for yourself. Practice abundance through small luxuries. Get some tattoos. Buy that $4 butter. Take a nap. Sit in silence. Go in nature. Whatever that is. Those things take that shit seriously. Really. Because it's the same thing with rest. Take that stuff seriously. Because it does have real consequences and effects in your creative day. And then the last one is play. Make room for non-productive, not quote-unquote, non-productive expressive time, non-output driven time. Right? Because if you believe that you have room to play, you have room to not have the answer to something, to just set aside that 20 minutes to have something be messy and try to figure it out for yourself first and not for an output, that is going to be huge in terms of your fluid intelligence, your elasticity, and how you think about your bandwidth and how you want to move forward. Okay, so that's the summary. Thank you, guys. The other thing that I would say is that I would love to keep talking about this. This is such a personal thing, so I understand that people might want to talk in a one-on-one basis. I will be here and we can talk about things. And then if you have questions, if you have feedback, if I mention something and you're like, I want to know more about that, you can go to my website and find me. And then this is also a copy of the presentation so that you have all of these resources to take home. Is on that. Thank you guys. Thanks so much.